where what we do doesn't matter and we're unappreciated. As a result, if that does happen, we lose our motivation, we lose our drive. And that is not going to be satisfaction to the students. That is not going to be beneficial to the students. As lead faculty, I am the department chair, but we have program chairs and clinical coordinators that are essential to our programs. The work that we do impacts students' experiences. We ensure that the day-to-day functioning of our assigned programs, we answer questions, we're mentoring faculty, which we're getting a lot of new faculty. We're working on schedule, curriculum, we're key contacts for stakeholders at the college and for the community, such as like dual enrollment. We contribute to college initiatives and mandates. We work with the WTCS and accrediting bodies to make sure that our program stays compliant. And then this may not sound realistic and possible, but in general, lead faculty are spending 6 hours a day just answering emails. We're spending about 15 to 20 hours a week in meetings. This equates to approximately 60 to 80-hour work weeks. And that's not an exaggeration. We're working hard. We're trying our best to help this program in this college. We're optimistic that we've hired an amazing new director of nursing, which will help improve our program and help bring balance. But that isn't going to change the fact that there's still day-to-day stuff that has to be done. And we need the lead faculty to be available so that this day-to-day stuff is completed. Currently this summer, we were given little to no Zancel to do our work. So now we have to decide on which student gets our assistance, if any student gets our assistance. Does the schedule get completed? Some of the things that we normally have to work on, things that are essential to get done over the summer, is the schedule. And there's huge components to that. That is not just a simple schedule. It can't be done before the end of the school year because there's too many moving parts. We don't know which students have been successful, which students are moving forward. We don't even have the complete list of the students that are going to be coming into the program because sometimes they're what we call conditional. They're still meeting requirements to get into the program. And so we need to wait to see if they're successful with that or not. And some of those students are still making those requirements or fulfilling those requirements over the summer. So we can't complete our schedule ahead of time. We can get kind of a rough idea, but there's too many moving parts. Other things include our clinical, the huge task of making sure that the clinicals are set, not just with the rosters, but it also involves collaborating with the clinical agencies. Clinical agencies, each one has their own specific requirements as far as what is due and what has to be done. There's specific orientations that have to be done. Rosters need to be sent to them. So it's huge. It's a huge undertaking that somebody has to do this over the summer. It can't be done ahead of time because, again, those pieces aren't available before we leave. There's other things that we're working on, such as collaborating with the team, the healthcare pathway, talking with students. We're working with ineligible students, students that were on medical leave, Title IX. We're helping attend to students with special circumstances, working with those students that are still working on requirements to get into the program. We're collaborating with advisors and other pathway people to help answer questions for students. We're helping to plan for the fall. We're onboarding this summer a new director of nursing. We've also have been in flux with our lead faculty, which has put a stress on the program, but we also have a new ADN chair that is just starting. She needs onboarding. We're working on faculty interviews, and this is just a small list of things that we're working on over the summer. And, you know, to say that what we do isn't important or can be put off is we just can't. For our students, we can't. For our program to be ready to go for the fall, we need time to be able to do that, or students are not going to have a clinical site to go to, which means then we don't have a program. So I just want to thank you for your time and hope that this sheds light on the importance of offering Zancel to the lead faculty. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for addressing the board and sharing your concerns. The board will not be responding to any matter in adherence to the state of Wisconsin open meetings law, which prevents a governmental body from discussing any specific item that was not publicly noticed on the agenda. Next item is approval of minutes, and I'm going to entertain that we approve both of the minutes from the regular board meeting of May 24th and the public budget hearing on June 20th together in one motion. Do I have a motion?
I move approval of both sets of minutes.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, any questions, comments, or corrections? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mays to approve the minutes of both the regular board meeting of May 24th, 2023. I think it should say, mine says 22. Is it just my notes? Okay, and the public budget hearing on June 20th, 2023. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the approval of consent agenda items. I do want to point out under the human resources report that our new PBS manager was already approved in a previous 2 months ago. So that should not be on here. That's a duplicative report. So with that correction under the HR report for the consent agenda items, do I entertain a motion to approve all of the consent agenda items with that removal of that duplicative issue?
I'll move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Well, I think so. I'll leave you to it. So any questions or discussion on any of the consent agenda items? Yes, Director Baker.
Right, so I've got two things. One is in the financial report, which we're going to talk about much more in depth later. And so I could save the question, but maybe I'm just highlighting it then.
Sure.
But I do notice that we are self-insured and we do repeatedly have a lot left over at the end of the year in benefits. You know, when you look at over the last couple of years, including for this year. And so, you know, maybe as we talk about budget, we could address that. It doesn't have to be addressed separately here, just so I understand where does that money go? Does that help us with our overall or whatever? And I understand why we budget in a certain way because we're self-insured. So it's mostly to highlight that.
Okay.
My second thing is kind of a request. In the construction report, I would appreciate, I was trying to revisit the policy. I couldn't find it, but it would be good if board members could see when a contractor is assigned the contract, whether they qualify as a minority business enterprise or disadvantaged business enterprise. I believe that that's in our policies that we give preference.
Yeah.
But it doesn't tell us when the contract is given, whether that particular contractor qualified. And I think it would just be good for the board to be able to track that going forward. Okay. Thank you.
And you should noted that the recommendation by the board before to list expenditures was in there. So you have it 2 ways in there, both alphabetical and then by expense cost. So any other discussion points or point of clarification? If none, we have a motion by Director Baker and a second by Director Mendieta Ramos to approve the consent agenda items with the deletion of the duplicative employee in the human resources report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? We'll move on to our board action items. First one is resolution F0270-06-23, authorizing the sale of $1.5 million general obligation promissory notes series 2023-2024A of Milwaukee Area Technical College District. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. And my understanding, this is your last meeting.
You're in mine both.
I know, right?
I heard you were leaving. I said, that's it.
Right, that's it, right, same.
Deal. Thank you. Good evening. There's 3 items on your agenda, which I'd like to participate in the discussion. The first one is the series 23-24A sale. We conducted a bid opening this morning based on information that we prepared for the market, your official statement, your rating report, and the details of the sale. We got 3 bidders, which is always great, and a very familiar name won the bid this time. It's Fidelity Capital Markets. Fidelity has bid on other issues of yours. They like a lot of the bidders, they come and go. So we had Fidelity, we had Huntington and TD Securities. And last month, Huntington didn't participate, Fidelity didn't participate, but FHN did. So they're going to be in and out as far as firms looking at their own capital position and when they want to participate. The good news is Fidelity came in at a 3.06. That's really low when you think last month we were at a 3.67. So that's a big swing in numbers. I don't know what that means, except to say that I think they had somewhere to go with it. You know, when Fidelity bought it at that moment, I'm guessing they had it sold, subject to your approval tonight. Okay, but they already had a place to place it, and therefore they were able to bid a little bit more aggressively, work for a few less dollars in their bid, knowing that if they had a place to go if they won. But you know, that was a very good bid by 10 basis points over Huntington. TD Securities, which was, you know, pretty far off. 24 is pretty far off when you think about it. Usually these are 0.01, 0.02, how tight they are. But they won last month. So, you know, it's going to be this. Bidders come and go. So once again, Fidelity at a 306 is the winning bidder. As far as the details of the issue, the money's transferred on July 13th. This is the point of the year where we roll out the maturities. So usually our maturities, they're always June 1st, not always, but June 1st. They were 24, 25, 26, 27. Now we just roll out 1 year. It's that time that change over 1 year. The interest payment starts on December 1st, and there are funds available for that first interest payment. Because there's such short maturities, they're non-callable. The ratings confirmed at AA1. The report, the condensed report is in the back. Moody's gives you that brief credit report because they have nothing new. The audit discussion is just beginning. So that will lead to a report in the future. But that condensed report, it's the same language. It's the last report. And as I mentioned, Fidelity is a winner. As far as the overall financings, this is the first of the series. We'll talk about the next 2 issues, but the next issue will be sold on July 13th at a parameter sale. I'll talk about why on that. And the third issue, that's the 27.5 million. That's your largest issue of the year. I expect on that issue, you will see additional names that you normally don't see. It all goes to a 27 million. The bidders could make more. So they'll pay more attention to a 1.5 million. That's the way the market goes. And then we follow through the process. As I mentioned, at the back of the report, we have the Moody's handout saying what I've just been, covered has been put into a resolution prepared by your bond counsel for your consideration. Perhaps is there any questions about the sale?
No questions? Sorry. Director Moore will conduct.
Thank you. You said there was a huge difference between 3.067 and 3.16. Do we know why that is, or?
Oh, I think like between the first and the second place bidder.
Yeah.
That just tells me that the first place bidder, before they submitted their bid, and we could see the time that they each put their bid in, and because it clocks in. We don't know the bid, but we can see the clock in, and we open the bids at 9:30 electronically. We open it, it just hits. And this was like 9:29 or whatever that they came in with their bid. It just tells me that right up at the end, they knew what they were going to do. They knew what they knew that somebody was going to buy it. They don't buy to hold. Fidelity buys it to sell to somebody else. That's most likely what they've done with this issue. And if they had it already sold, the salesperson who was gonna sell that out, the payout to that salesperson may be a little bit different than if they had a risk to take. Going into the 4th of July, next week, there is one competitive sale in the market. Because nobody, I'm not there. I mean, the people aren't gonna be around next week, you know, as far as buying or selling. So this was the last, there's some sales tomorrow, but this is it for almost like 10-day time period. So they weren't gonna buy it and say, well, gee, maybe we'll be able to sell it the next few days. Those people are closing up their books for the holiday. They bought it because they knew they had somewhere to go with it. Director, I could be totally wrong on this. But I think that's what happened here. Therefore, they're a little more aggressive in their bid.
But, and correct me if I'm wrong
No.
about this. You said that you didn't know why there was a difference between 3.067 and 3.16.
Mhm.
And I'm sure that there's a way to find out, you know, why. Maybe it's in your explanation, but I was curious because like, I don't know why that happened. And I was just want you going.
Yeah, I think, you know, what I would say to you is that, you know, it's all the math, right? And that they give us interest rates and then there's a premium that they pay the district and their premium they paid was a little bit different than the premium that once again, that Huntington was willing to pay. And so that factors into the math. What I don't know is whether Huntington had the same places to sell it that Fidelity had. If they didn't, they would couch their bid a little bit. So they would factor it in, maybe keep a little bit more of an underwriting fee because of a risk, which Fidelity didn't have to. I just don't know that details what they did with it. Because once they bid it and they bought it, it's up to them. So our risk is off the table as far as what happens with the bonds. Okay.
No, you do have. Director Foley does have a question.
When you say you don't know the reason. It's essentially market driven. It's essentially driven by. I mean, I can do this like cross examination, isn't that right? But maybe we'll get there faster if we don't. It's market driven,
courtroom.
it's their own calculus of what the risk is. If they have zero risk, they're willing to take a lower return. Those are the reasons. We just don't know specifically.
Right. Exactly. You put it better than I would have.
I doubt it, but thank you.
But that's right. We don't know the specific reason, but it's all market driven.
But the other thing we do know is that at least the rating agency doesn't see anything changing in our circumstances that would affect the rate other than what's going on in the marketplace generally.
And so with a good report, a consistent report, a continuing report, someone who's buying a bond that matures in 2025 feels comfortable that there's not going to be a change in the rating and therefore the credit worthiness of their investment and continue.
Anybody else? Okay, if not, we had a motion by Director Mays and a second by Director Baker. Did I get that right? Okay, for resolution F0270-063-23, authorizing the sale of $1.5 million general obligation promissory note series 2023-2024 AM Milwaukee Area Technical College. This is a roll call vote. So Beth, can you please take a roll call?
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Case.
Aye.
Director Diaz.
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director May.
Aye.
Director Moore Umukunde.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Olson.
Aye. Two more resolutions because as Mr. Meehan shared with us, we have our normal 1.5 and we have our 27.5. That's always the fun one to do. So resolution F0271-06-23, authorizing the issuance of establishing the parameters for the sale not to exceed $1.5 million general obligation promissory note series 2023-2024B of the Milwaukee Area Technical College District. Do I have a motion?
I move approval of resolution F0271-06-23.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any conversation on that? If not, we
If I-
did.
Just
Yeah.
it's one brief explanation and then council may have a better, clearer description of it, but you have to separate sales by 15 days. And so your next board meeting is July 10th. And so from here to July 10th, not 15 days. So we're you're adopting, and you've done this other years as well, a parameter resolution that says, go ahead and sell it when we get through the 15 days, which is, let's say, July 13th, we'll sell it. So at the next board meeting, you will not have an award resolution like you've had tonight. That's it. That's the explanation of it.
Thank you for that. So we did have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mays for resolution F 271-06 23. Beth, can you please take a roll call?
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Diaz,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Morton McCombie, Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Burris, Director Olson.
Aye. And our next resolution is F 272-06 23, authorizing the issuance of $27.5 million general obligation promissory notes, series 2023-2024 C of the Milwaukee Area Technical College District, Wisconsin. Do I have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution F 272-06 23.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any additional? Remember, this is a larger amount than we have put in the past in this specific one.
And so you're adopting the initial resolution, so we're not doing it as part of the reorganization meeting.
Mhm,
It'll be sold at the August board meeting.
mhm. Okay, seeing none, I do have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mendieta Ramos to approve resolution F 272-06 23. Beth, can you please take a roll call vote?
Director Diaz,
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos,
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Morton McCombie.
Aye.
Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Burris,
Aye.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Olson.
Aye. Yes, Director.
Just before we move off the item, Mr. Meehan, how many years have you sat in that chair?
Over 30.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say what I said to you privately before, I so appreciate when people come in front of us and we can trust what they say to us.
Thank you.
Especially like the first time I sat here and I realized my name was going to go on something that was like $1.5 million and I kind of freaked out about it, let alone the $27 million. You have served this college really well and it's been a pleasure to work with you all this time. Thank you so much.
It's been my privilege. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Our next resolution is F 273-06 23 to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 renovation remodeling capital projects. And this is statutory. And we have Jenny Ropey up here, and we've gotten most of this before.
Yeah.
This is not new, but we do have if there's any questions. So do I have a motion? Do I have someone who's willing to make that motion?
I'll move approval of resolution FO 273-06-23.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or further discussion? This is not the first time we're seeing that, but we're taking action on it tonight.
Just for clarity, could staff just help us understand the difference between this item and the next item? Because they're sort of related. So just so we all know what we're voting for.
This first resolution is for the approval of next fiscal year's capital project list. So our next year's plan for capital improvements. The next resolution will be broader. This one is just 1 year.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No other questions? Must have given us enough information before that we're all good with it and did our homework. Okay, seeing no additional questions, we did have a motion by Director Baker and a second by Director Mays for resolution F 273-06 23. Beth, could you please take a roll call?
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Morton McCombie.
Aye.
Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Diaz,
Aye.
Director Olson.
Aye. And we'll move on to resolution F 274-06 23 to approve the 3-year facilities plan. Do I have a motion?
I move adoption.
Okay, is there a second? Good, thank you. Any additional questions or clarifications? Again, we've seen it, but. Okay, seeing none, we had a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mendieta Ramos, sorry. A resolution F 0274-06-23 to approve the 3-year facilities plan. Could we please have a roll call vote?
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Mays.
Aye.
Director Morton Monday.
Aye.
Director Baker.
Aye.
Director Burris.
Aye.
Director Kate.
Aye.
Director Diaz.
Aye.
Director Foley.
Aye.
Director O's.
Aye. Item F.
You're getting there.
I know, we're actually kind of like, wow, this is, I think your last meeting. Really big. In front of you was the budget that, we had our budget hearing last week, but this is resolution F 0275-06-23 to adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. Do I have a motion?
Oh, yeah, right. Okay, so I'll move approval of resolution FO 275-06-23.
A second,
Second.
okay? This is a reminder that when we do take a vote, we need a 2/3 majority vote because it is the budget to pass it, so. Director Baker.
Since you've been just waiting for quite a time on each of these items and so disappointed.
Right.
So obviously we did have our budget hearing and we had a number of questions. And we had a conversation about this, but I would like to go back to the question that I raised during the consent agenda and, looking at the upcoming budget. Because when I take a look at our fringe benefit totals, and so, for instance, there was about a $4 million gap in the 21-22 year between what we budgeted and what we actually used, not using that much. And again, this year, it looks like about a $5 million gap in between what we budgeted. And all the bills probably aren't in yet for this year, so it might be something similar, but when we're looking at, we're spending about 90% of what we're budgeting. So my question is, where's that money go?
Well, what we do is we maintain a reserve. Okay, so we have a reserve, so when we put our, the money goes in, we actually had excess reserves, so we pulled those excess reserves back. And we're investing those funds at 5% in the local government investment pool. So we did we did make a request to the healthcare consortium to pull back $2 million because we had excess reserves, and now that's going to be invested, and those will also, the interest that we're going to be earning on that, is roughly $100,000. So that's going to help our general fund. So that's, the upside for that, because we had the additional. But the reason why it's, so we had many positions open, as we talked about through the year, because we trying to balance the budget. So I attribute a lot of that to the lower head count that we had, so.
And is it possible for us to roll that, when we're struggling to balance the budget in one way or another, and we have this excess, is it possible for us just to roll that into the general fund? Or can we only roll in the interest of it?
No, the interest is, the interest that we're earning by investing those
Yes.
funds, that doesn't, it's not funding the general fund. To answer your question, those reserves do not fund the general fund.
So whatever's in that healthcare reserve, that benefits the reserve, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so the only time we have expenses are when we have claims.
I understand.
Okay, so just because we paid the premiums and the claims didn't come through like we had anticipated, or at least what the insurance professionals required of us for our premiums. Like I said, that money, it's not expensed, it's excess cash sitting with the consortium. As I said, we pull it back. That money is going to be invested in the local government investment pool. And I said, so that we can take advantage of that funding, and it also will help support the general fund.
I get that. I think
Okay.
I get that. And just, if all my colleagues don't, that we are self-insured, which is.
That is correct, yep.
You know, why it kind of works this way, and that's good for us, and.
When claims are low, yeah.
Yeah, it's good, exactly, when claims are low. But I don't quite understand, like, if we pull that money back from the consortium.
Yeah.
Why can't we put it in the general fund?
That was gonna be my question.
Yeah.
Does it have to be
What-
designated for healthcare? Because I know that typically when you have healthcare, it's self-funded, it has to be designated reserves different than like your general reserve.
They're-
That's what we're
yeah,
talking
They
about.
are different, they are different reserves, and we did pull. So we have to keep 12%, I think 12 or 12.5%, I can't remember what the number exactly is. Of our annual expenses in reserves, and then so we didn't, you know, as we talked about, we had excess reserves, so. That's just basically cash that's ours, that's sitting at the consortium. And we're utilizing, I mean, we weren't getting much of an interest rate. They were giving us an interest rate, but the interest rate was significantly lower than we can do. We can invest on our own, so no, you cannot just take that money and put it into the general fund, you know.
So it's not cash.
Well, if you think about, it, you've got ways money goes into the general fund revenue. And the only revenue that we can get in there is the interest income that we earn. And then what comes out are the expenses.
So for me, so what happens with that money? So why, at what point can we decide to either assign it to come to the general fund or a different fund, or does that just stays there?
No, it's our cash that it's excess cash that we have. So
Right.
it's
I'm just a little, I mean, I understand that. I'm just
Uh-huh.
confused as to why can't we pull it into the general? At what point can we make that decision of saying, okay, we have this excess cash, 2 million, whatever it might be. Let's just use it either for something else. It doesn't have to go into the general scholarships, public party, whatever. At what point can we make that decision as? Oh, we want to get it to try?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, I understand the question. It's
Yeah.
kind of the
It's
same
the same
thing.
thing,
it's the same
yeah,
thing.
it's like, at what
Right.
time can we?
So
Or
the
the-
money
right,
that we
I-
have to keep.
I believe that it's because it's designated for healthcare, you could mitigate increases in healthcare in the cost in the future if you had that is what you could do, but you can't transfer. That's my understanding, but you have to tell me that.
We can't decide that, like. as a
No,
board,
like when
okay.
once you're self-funded, when you put it in insurance, you can. Like, so if insurance went up 8%, you might only pass on to the employee 6% if you had enough to buffer that or cover that for a year, but it's still within the health insurance
That makes
piece of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So
I
it
try to
does,
take a
but then
stab at it.
How can we take it out and just invest
We
it in
can't. That's what
government
she's saying,
bonds?
yeah.
But he's telling us we're taking it out and investing it in government bonds and making interest off of it, and that's.
But I think
not
it's still
healthcare.
designated, when you put it in there, it's still designated, because if you pulled the money out from the bonds, it would still go back to the health insurance piece. It wouldn't go into the general fund or scholarships.
It-
he said it can go into general fund.
it's well, the
Interest,
The
earnings.
earnings.
from
earnings,
The
yeah, the
earnings
interest.
from the interest
Yeah.
goes into the general fund, yes,
And-
Right.
But the
reserves.
But the principal doesn't.
the
Right, for
principal
healthcare.
can only be used for healthcare.
No, it can be, it's not, okay, so it's hard to, I'm trying to figure out a good way to explain this, because it was, we paid it as premium, but it was never expensed. So
Okay.
it's, and we have to keep, and they have a requirement, they meaning the consortium has a requirement that we keep 12.5, so and sometimes, you know, if you're below your 12.5, they raise your premium so that you get that up. It's just more of a cash flow item as opposed to reserves that are tagged and have to be held for the health insurance.
So it is, so when we're taking that money that we're over and we're investing it.
Right.
But the premium, so what I'm hearing, that premium, we can't use that premium. It has to sit in this investment in case we need it for healthcare again, or could we use that premium to put in our construction fund or
No,
in our
well,
general? We can't move that premium.
no.
That's sitting in, what did you call it, a government?
Look,
What are we
call
getting?
well, at the short term, it's LGIP pool, local government investment pool, and it's a great opportunity for the college to invest
Sure.
and any local government to invest excess funds, and you get a very high rate of return.
Perfect.
And right now it's
And the principal though is principal that has to be designated for health.
No, I don't believe
You
that
don't
it has to
think
be. I don't believe that it has to be.
So I think that's my question is, and maybe we can't answer that today, is what else could we spend that principal on if we wanted to?
I have confused me, certainly. Well, she kind of cleared me out, but then I just got, yeah.
I'm,
got it.
I'm saying right now, I thought I got it, but then. Because it is premiums and you can't reallocate, if somebody's taking people's money as premiums, you can't take that and put it towards something else. So in the future, you could mitigate it, because it's, I know, I get
It's
it,
already
I get it.
expensed.
So I think that right now, it would be helpful to get a follow-up report, because I think right now. It would, to put some time on it,
Okay.
to add clarity, because I don't think we're getting clarity, we're just swirling more. And so my recommendation is to put together in a written report, take it back and have someone else read it for clarity, who's not a finance person. And Dr. Martin has just volunteered.
I can understand.
Yeah,
that.
so yeah, I think that that's what we're asking right now. It doesn't seem like it's just not gelling right now, so some space and coming back would make sense. Yes, Director Morrow.
So it is my understanding that there is a legal definition between the contingency fund and reserves, and that a contingency fund is more flexible than a reserve. Is that the case? Is that your understanding? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm just trying to think of, we typically don't, for contingency fund. I don't know if we don't have a contingency fund. That, that I can think of that. I don't understand which.
Well, so I'm going back to my days on the finance committee on the county board, and we would have the reserves, and then we would have the contingency fund, and that the reserves was less flexible, but we couldn't use them for X, Y, Z the way we could contingency funds. As a county board member, if you had a pet project, you would dip into the contingency to kind of use those dollars, but you couldn't do that in the reserves. And I'm wondering, is this the way that I am to understand reserves that we're talking about now?
Yeah, so each of our designated funds have reserves. And we're gonna vote on that a little bit later. But the healthcare fund, if you think about it, it's not the consortium just requires that we have so much, the 12, as I mentioned. We have more than 12, they're not required, so it's a healthcare consortium rule, and then if we didn't, so let's look at it the other way. Let's say if we had less than 12, let's say we were 2 million short, we'd have to come up with the funds to put in there. So it's just a transfer of cash into the reserves to make sure that the consortium had liquidity, because when the claims come, we have to have those funds, and they've determined that 12% is the level that they feel comfortable. And there's many schools that have fallen below the 12%. And we get the monthly reports and we see when that happens, and when they do, they have to make those contributions. So it's a cash contribution to the healthcare consortium. It's not a fund,
Right,
so to speak, like Fund 1, Fund 2. The general fund is Fund 1, and those reserves are those you cannot, as you had mentioned, those you cannot just use for whatever you want. Now, going back to contingency, what we do is sometimes we do have, if we have unbudgeted, let's say in October, when we do we find out that we had estimated $1.4 million for net new construction. So that number comes in at 1.7 million. So we get $200,000 of extra revenue that's in the form of tax levy. We'll take, since we hadn't budgeted that, what we'll do is we'll put that in a contingency in the business office when you have expense, when people they've already put their budget together for the year. So if they have bills to pay, that's a contingency that, like you said, is very flexible. It allows us to do that, but that's already in, those are funds that are already in the general fund. So it came in the form of revenue.
and we do have a designation for self-insurance, correct?
Yes,
We do designate a certain amount. that we set aside that is for our self-insurance in our budget.
We do budget for self-insurance, right?
Director Foley?
We start at the top and see if I can get to the bottom before I lose my voice here today. We're self-insured.
Correct.
Which means we have to cover the cost of the claims that are actually submitted plus whatever the cost of administration is. Right?
Yes, that is
Okay.
correct.
When you say that we pay premiums, we pay a dollar amount into the consortium so that they can administer the funds.
Right, and those
Okay.
are premiums for specifically for MATC.
You said that they want 12.5%. They want 12.5% of what?
Of our annual costs.
Of our estimated annual
Estimated
costs.
annual costs, correct?
Okay. And so at the end of the year, no investments, all things being equal, we should end up with a zero balance in that account or something close to it, assuming our projections and estimates bear out.
Are you talking about the reserves?
I'm talking, don't use the word reserve here, because that word is what's killing this conversation.
Okay,
I'm talking about the money you pay into the consortium, the 12.5%.
that was established.
We overestimate them.
The question is, if we're doing this right and all of our projections bear out, we should be at roughly zero by the end of each fiscal year. And then we have to make a new payment in for the next fiscal year, right? That's not how it works.
No, we keep that 12.5. That reserve, that stays in the consortium until we leave the consortium.
Ah.
Like a
Okay,
deposit.
so then, all
Correct.
right, so
It's more of a
that's,
deposit.
that is there to make sure that we do in fact cover the costs that are passed through.
It's where the consortium feels comfortable that if each of the schools has a 12% over their annual costs to cover.
Then we had an overage.
Okay. So now we get to the end of an actual fiscal year and let's use the dollar number instead of the percentage. Let's say we got $50,000 more than that 12.5% because our claims were less than we were expecting. Okay. Does that $50,000 stay in that account?
If we allow it to stay there and we can earn interest on it, and we earn interest on it, right?
Don't run ahead. Okay. It can stay there. Does it have to stay there?
We can pull it out, but it has to be approved by the board of directors.
This board of directors?
No.
Which
The
board of
consortium
directors?
board of directors.
Okay. And what is the standard by which they determine whether we are going to be allowed to pull that money out or not?
I made a request recently. In fact, it just was.
Or just in general? Just in
Okay,
general.
I made a request to pull $2 million out because we were not earning what we could be earning on that money. So it was not logical to leave it there when we could earn quite a bit more in the local government investment pool.
Okay, but even if we weren't able to get a better interest rate, we would have is it true that we would have the right to withdraw that $50,000?
If the board approved it.
If the board approved it, okay.
Right.
And if we asked to withdraw, and if they approved it, we now have $50,000 sitting in our hands. Is there any limit on what we can use that money for?
No.
Okay, so now,
Thank you. That's why you get paid the big bucks.
That was the question.
So we get paid.
so now we've had the approval of, and again, I'm gonna use $50,000 as the number, $50,000. You've invested in something that's paying 5%. Do we have an obligation to put the $50,000 of principal back into the consortium?
No.
Okay. Do we have an obligation to pay the interest that you're earning on that $50,000 that's been withdrawn back into the consortium? Thank you.
Did that
It took you
answer?
long enough, Foley.
Okay.
That's what,
He got tired of it, so.
Yeah, it was a puzzle. It was like he
Come
needed
on,
to
Foley,
figure
fix
out.
this. Okay,
Thank you.
so we
I
can-
just scratched out everything else. I got a better understanding now.
Sorry.
And this may be the right thing to do. We can do it.
Any other questions related to the budget? So remember, we're like approving the budget. It's back to where this motion was. Yeah.
Can the writing assignment be taken off the table? Now
I think so. I
Yeah.
think we're good.
The
Yeah.
homework is gone.
No more homework.
My question is born of whiplash over the last week or so in the state legislature. Is there anything in the budget that we presented at our budget hearing that has to change, or that we think will have to change on account of anything that did or did not happen at the state legislature in the last 2 weeks?
Yes.
Can you explain what you're referring to?
Okay, so what we did is we budgeted in revenue, state aid. The governor proposed, a certain level of state aid for technical college WTCS schools, and our portion was 5 million. We looked at that, we were somewhat aggressive to put the entire amount in there. And we received 454,000 as opposed to 5 million. So we have a revenue gap of roughly $4.5 million. So we're looking and we're working, we've been working on in our, we call it the discretionary fund, non-wages, non-benefits. We're trying to find savings. We found quite a bit of savings there. We're so we're closing that gap so that when we get back in, when we true up, when we do our amendments in October, we'll amend for the revenue that we actually received as opposed to, and then we'll also have the net new construction, and they'll true up the tax levy and everything like that gets trued up in the October. Because the Wisconsin Department of Revenue reports that information, and we'll have accurate information in October. We'll also make adjustments. They'll have been gone. The auditors will have gone through the audit. And if there's any adjustments to the current year audit where we might have overspent or we had additional revenue, we will adjust those budgets to reflect a true up of the audit in October. And we do this every year.
Dr. Fo-
The budget as it has been proposed, as I recall, had some amount that would be moved into reserves. Is that correct? Or was it zero this time?
We have an estimate. Remember, this is the last year for her funding, and so
Right.
we had a small amount, but I think it's going to be closer to zero this year because we've had a lot of expenses. Last year, we cut we cut a lot of our discretionary spend, and it turned out that we had to near the end of the year, we ran out of budget, so we overspent budget, and so therefore I believe that we're going to be very close to zero at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
It would be less than $1 million if you think of 100 and you get close to zero with $175 million. It's that easy to land on. But we're very close to zero, where we should. I anticipate that.
Check. Antonio and Erica don't have hands up. Other questions related to the budget? Okay, seeing none. We're gonna go way back to the motion. We had a motion by Director Baker, a second by Director Foley, for resolution F0275-0623 to adopt the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. Beth, can you please take a roll call?
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Moore, Mukunde,
Aye.
Director Baker,
Aye.
Director Burris. Aye. Director Case,
Aye.
Director Diaz,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Ramos.
Aye.
Director Olson.
Aye. Item G, resolution F0276-06-23 to establish the reserves for the fiscal year 2023-2024, and this is statutory. Do I have a motion?
I'll move resolution FO276-06-23 for the reserves.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion or clarification or questions for Jeff? Yep.
Well, since I kind of already beat this dead horse.
Sure.
I figured
You wanna
might
just
as well move it.
Step
So
on it.
that's my backup.
We get all got our little tutorial on the last question that Director Foley gave us a little follow-up on. I don't see any additional questions. This will be a voice vote. So we did have a motion by Director Baker and a second by Director Mays for resolution F 0276-06-23 to establish reserves for the fiscal year 2023-2024. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're moving on to resolution F 0277-06-23 to authorize contingency payment of bills and awarding of contracts. Do I have a motion?
I move adoption.
Have a second? Second. Thank you. Questions or follow-up on this item? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mendia-Ramos to pass resolution F 0277-06-23 to authorize the contingency payment of bills and awarding of contracts. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item I, which is resolution F 0278-06-23 to approve the insurance coverages through District Mutual Insurance and the Wisconsin Technical College Insurance Trust. Do I have a motion?
I move approval.
Second?
Second.
Okay, this is an annual, and we were just talking about insurance. These all seem to roll together the last 3 ones.
Diagrams. even.
We do. Okay, so this is to be part of the consortium that we are. So we did have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mays for resolution F 0278-06-23 to approve the insurance coverages through the district's mutual insurance and the Wisconsin Technical College Insurance Trust. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Item J, which is the approval of the president's annual goals. Do I have a motion? Thank you. Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Questions or clarifications on this? This was sent out before. As the board has talked before, we've been trying to get more specific on the goals, so they are measurable. So when it does time mid-year and annual, that it's able to put metrics to some of those. And sometimes that's challenging because not all the work is always quite so quantifiable, but I think there were some changes from last year to this year to make that a little bit easier. Director Foley.
I just wonder if it would be wise, given what goes on in the political level above us, if strategic priority number 1 were changed from student experience to student success as a category.
So. Tell me again, which one are you looking
Very first line, strategic priority 1
Oh,
is
at?
student
The very top,
experience.
right, the actual strategic plan priority. Yeah, and we will be, we're reaching the end of those goal years, we'll be looking at that again anyways to update all the different priorities.
Yeah, my point is simply. Every educational institution in the state is under pressure right now,
Mhm.
and a lot of it is linguistics. And so my suggestion is that first strategic priority not be about experiences, but about success. It's a name change. I don't think there's a substantive change intended there, but I think it might help. I would suggest that. I don't think we need to take a vote on that, but I would suggest that.
Yeah, that's the actual strategic plan piece that is really not, I'm just relating my goals to that, so I will definitely take that back and have the conversation about it. And certainly can change it on my sheet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you could add a heading outside of it and where it links
Correct.
to it if that was a concern by other board members. I mean, I think it's worthy of discussion. I would agree with Mark that
Yeah.
the linguistics that is occurring is sometimes where that is and sometimes the perception of something while we're talking about the same thing. And people who are interpreting different things differently, just for the sake of. I won't finish my sentence, but that might be helpful. Like, I understand that they're linked to that, but it doesn't mean that you can't put a different heading and then link the strategic plan underneath it. So we don't have to change a strategic plan, because that wouldn't be something the board could just do there, but it is possible creating
This
other
one.
headings for
And
you
this
as
one.
a, right, yeah. Any other discussion or input on that suggestion by Director Foley?
I mean, I'm just. Our strategic plan still says student success, though.
No, it's just-
It's a
Our-
student
The
experience.
strategic plan,
The
over.
strategic plan says student
student
experience.
experience. So you're suggesting changing it. That's what I was just trying to, you're suggesting changing it
I'll
on
change
her
it.
goals and in the strategic plan.
Uh,
I get the
yeah.
reason.
Yeah, I don't know if we can change this
I understand.
plan without a greater
Mhm.
activity and vote. And so I'm not suggesting that at the moment. I'm just suggesting in terms of being able to present to whomever may be interested as to what your number one strategic priority is. And
Okay.
I think success is a stronger term than experience, even though I wouldn't change any of the subjects.
Easy. Absolutely can do that.
Any other questions or thoughts around the goals? So that's more of a technical change in terms of that. It's not really changing. It's just the way that I'll call it a formatting technical change. Rather than substantive. Okay, so I did have a motion by Director Mendieta Ramos and seconded by Director Mays to approve the president's annual goals. This is a voice vote, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, carries. We are on to item 6, which is policy approval in front of each of you. So before I asked for a motion, I did want to bring that attention. There was a suggestion, and it's colored, and so we will bring that. So in talking with Director Baker, it was a suggestion she made in paragraph 3 for policy, is it A0120? It's in a darker blue there, the last section, and then that, so we have the ability to, since we just received this, is approve the policies as they were in the packet. But I can take a motion in a second, and then someone can offer amendment to the change. So that's, I just want everybody to know from a parliamentary procedure, the process that we're going to do, because there was that. So I'm going to take a motion for the board policy section A bylaws that were in the packet. As presented in the public packet. So,
I move approval.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I'd like to offer an amendment.
yes,
So board members will see in front of them, one sheet, from the policy manual. This is a correction made since the first read last month. It's appropriate in our procedures to be able to change things after our first read. And just so folks understand, the reason was that originally we said that the MATC board would review the policy manual, when in fact the board really reviews the bylaws, section A of the policy manual, and instructs the administration to review the entire manual. So we just added the sentence that you see in dark bluish purple. That says we're reviewing section A as a board, and the administration will be responsible for conducting a review of the remaining sections of the policy manual. So my amendment is to amend the policy manual as stated in the item that is in front of board members tonight.
Second.
so any discussion on the amendment? Trying to go through it, so. A minute in front of us. I would agree with your point. It's a point of clarification because of the bylaws versus policies. Hands up. So seeing none, we had an amendment made by Director Baker and a second by Director Burris to add what is in front of you. I can read it, but I think that's okay. I'll do okay in darker blue to the original amendment. So seeing no further discussion, we're gonna take a vote on the amendment first. Okay, and we can just do voice vote unless anybody's calling for a roll call vote. So all those in favor of the amendment that was offered to policy A0120 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, amendment carries. We're gonna go back to the original vote on all of the rest of the bylaws that were in the packet with this amendment now approved. Is there any other discussion on any of the other bylaws that were proposed? Changes in the policy manual? Digital hands. That being said, we did have a motion by Director Foley and a second by Director Mendieta Ramos to approve the board policies section A bylaws in the packet with the amendments that just passed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, I think we're done with action. Yes? Okay. That was a lot of action. Okay, we're gonna move on to the chairperson's report. First on the item is that, well, actually not, we do have it on my chairperson's report, but it's not the way that the agenda is. Let me go into that, 'cause I think the self-evaluation reports are on there. So I'm gonna first ask Director Case to share the foundation liaison report.
Sorry, mute is hard.
That's fine.
All right, so the MATC Foundation Board met Thursday, June 8th for its annual meeting. The MATC Foundation Board was presented with and/or discussed the following. The board nominated and approved 2 new board members, Jamie Hurtado, President and Founder, Installation Technologies, Inc., and Tim Smith, Retired General Manager, the Pfister Hotel. The board also approved the slate of officers for 22-23. Chantel Bird, Vice President of Shared Service, Veolia, will serve as board president. The board thanks Julie Ebert, retired partner attorney, Quarles and Brady, for serving 2 terms as board president, and Kevin Joy for serving 1 term as board director. The board received an update on fundraising activity to date, which noted with the recent $400,000 Bader grant, the foundation exceeded its 22-23 $4.5 million goal for a total of $5.2 million, and also reached the next Chakota benchmark, releasing a $1 million check. The board also adopted 2023-24 budget. The board approved recommended amendments to the statement of purpose and board director form, which better detailed the give-get expectations of board directors. Lastly, the board reviewed a highlight clip from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel's website that featured the MATC Stormers men's basketball team celebrating its first national championship. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, and the next item under, I guess it's A2, is the board self-evaluation results. So at your table, there was a printed copy. This was emailed out, so it's this color copy here. The board always does a self-evaluation. If you remember last year, this was the basis of our retreat, our first retreat that we did. And it provides some background as far as some of the work of the board, where board members feel that there is some progress and where there needs to be more work. So this would be the basis of that. So tonight we're not taking action on it, but if anybody wanted to make comments or questions related to that, this would be the time to do it. But really it isn't just to take it for the sake of taking it. It's not like we get a report card or anything, but it's really to then take the results of this to decide how does that formulate a goal for the board itself rather than just for the college. So I don't know if there's any observations that people had related to it. I'll pause there. Okay, so it is your copy. The board can choose to, once the officers are elected in July, decide what they are going to do with the results. So those are your hard copy, but you also received one that Beth sent into that. I have a napkin announcement here. Tonight is just full of fun stuff. Now I have a second one.
It's up to you.
I have a postcard. We need a black Bronco move. I just want to like do this in the PA at a like department store.
Oh, that's mine.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't have to read your license plate out loud here, but an employee is blocked in right now and they can't get out, so.
In the president's parking.
Yeah.
Okay.
So. But now the postcard says he's okay to wait an hour, so if we take a break, I guess, I don't know, I got lots of notes here, but so.
Is it a Bronco or Bronco Sport?
I can read the license plate out loud if you want, and that's, here's, how about this, I'll let you look at it. You tell me if that's you or not, you know?
Really?
Okay, so, just like, our campus security came in with that, so I don't know. Well,
So is that now public record?
I just know,
Oh,
yeah, you know, somebody requests the napkin, I guess they could, I don't know, I'm just sharing. So our next meeting, the MATC board's next meeting will be the annual board organizational meeting on Monday, July 10th. So as Mr. Meehan shared with you, this is a little bit off schedule, which is why all of our borrowing is off a little bit, and it's on a Monday. So not only is it not a complete set of weeks, it's also on a different day of the week at 4 o'clock. It's an in-person meeting, and that is where the officers will be set for the next fiscal year. Summer meeting for the Wisconsin Technical College District Boards Association is July 21st to the 23rd. The meeting will take place in Appleton and Fox Valley Tech College. I know that Director Baker has signed up. If anybody else, please let Beth know for that. The focus of that meeting is on understanding data for effective board decision-making and monitoring. That actually sounds intriguing.
This is when again? Say it again.
July 21st through 23rd up in Appleton. Yes.
If I could just clarify those dates.
Okay.
Those dates I think are Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday is the day that the Board of Directors of the District Boards Association meets. You're invited to participate, but the actual program is going to be. It's really Friday. It's Thursday night. There's a welcome and it's on Friday, so you don't have to commit the 3 days and then you get the benefit of the training.
Got it.
Is it accessible virtually at all?
Is it when?
Virtual? Can we join virtual at all?
Probably.
They were doing it during COVID. I know there was some conversation to keep that, so I don't know. We had did one.
Yeah.
I know I can't go, but it's a weekend for me, but yeah.
They did it hybrid.
Yeah.
Because then I could listen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they're open to doing that now. They've been trying to do it with every meeting, so.
And to Mark's point, I am going, but you know, like I'm gonna be there Thursday evening, so I can just be there Friday morning when the session starts, and pretty much it's a morning session. There's a luncheon. We hear from the president of the President's Association and some other people, and then there's sometimes tours of the campus or other and committee meetings, but you know, the bulk of the session you would attend is really just Friday morning. So if people want to go, it's not a huge time commitment. It's not far away.
Good. Okay,
So
yes.
And so there's an item, and I was just trying to think where I can raise it. So I think it's in board functioning, so I'm gonna raise it in the chairperson's
Okay.
report. It just, when we get, and I have talked to Beth about this, when we get videos sent to us, it'd be super nice if the board also gets the PowerPoint deck that's used. Because what happens is maybe I have a 12-minute video and it might be something we're using this month or next month. And if I want to go refresh myself, I have to watch a 12-minute video rather than just be able to flip through the slides. And sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't, but I'd love if that could be made a regular thing. And then, you know, we don't need them in paper, but just then you have it digitally, you can save it, and you can always then take a look and recall what it's about.
Okay.
Thank you.
Last item It's the last board meeting for Director Diaz and Director Mays. So Director Diaz, I'm going to read this resolution for you. I have a plaque here. I don't think anything can get zapped to you, so we'll have to get it to you, but I'm going to read the resolution on the plaque for Director Diaz. This one I'm trying to decide. It's right in between. So whereas Antonio Diaz began his appointment to the Milwaukee Area Technical College District Board on July 14th, 2021, and whereas during his term as board director, the college and its students greatly benefited from Mr. Diaz's leadership and commitment to the district, and whereas Mr. Diaz successfully collaborated with the college's community partners to secure new scholarship funding and increase current donations, and whereas Mr. Diaz championed financial assistance and programs to improve and enhance the educational opportunities for MATC's DACA students, and whereas Mr. Diaz avidly promoted the college's workforce education programs, especially the automotive maintenance technician and office technician programs. And whereas Mr. Diaz, an active member in the city's Hispanic Latino A community, enthusiastically supported the college's efforts to become a Hispanic serving institution. Therefore, be it resolved that the MATC District Board, on its own behalf and that of the students and employees of MATC, gratefully acknowledges, thanks, and honors Antonio Diaz for his dedicated service and contributions to MATC. So.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to be part of this board. And I'm intended to keep on doing my work and continue on encouraging people to go to MATC. It's a great institution. And if in the future I get an opportunity again, I'll be back, continue the work, and education is very important to me and is very important for my community. So thank you all. It's been a pleasure to be with you, working with all of you. And I really appreciate everything. And being here has been a very good learning lesson for me. I would take it for the rest of my life, and I hope I can come back again. So thank you all. I really appreciate everybody's collaboration with me. So thank you.
Good, thank you. And next, we have a resolution of appreciation for Director Mays. Whereas Nikki Mays began her appointment to the Milwaukee Area Technical College District Board on July 1st, 2020. And whereas Ms. Mays served with distinction as a board director for 3 years and as a board treasurer for the past 2 years. And whereas during her term as board director, the college and its students greatly benefited from Ms. Mays' leadership and commitment to the district. And whereas Ms. Mays championed the college's important role in preparing individuals to meet the region's workforce needs. And whereas Ms. Mays fully supported the college developing and opening student housing. And whereas Ms. Mays, as liaison to the board's audit advisory committee, ensured the college faithfully complied with all internal and external financial guidelines. Therefore, be it resolved that the MATC District Board, on its own behalf and that of the students and employees of MATC, gratefully acknowledges, thanks, and honors Nikki Mays for her dedicated service and contributions to MATC.
Well, it's definitely has been a wonderful experience. I will continue to advocate strongly for MATC with, any of them with my current employer as well too. So I think that it's been, like I said, a wonderful experience. I've learned a lot. I've gotten to know a lot of really wonderful people, and definitely appreciate the experience.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, why can't we have it recognize Nikki Mays Day?
It was yesterday.
It must be.
And that concludes my chairperson's report. So I'm going to move on to the agenda, which is the president's report.
Well, it turns out, Chair Olson, that you also,
Yeah.
this is your last meeting. And so I have a resolution for
Oh,
you as
okay.
well, and I will read that and put my glasses on. Whereas Lisa Olson began her appointment to the Milwaukee Area Technical College District Board on July 1st, 2017. And whereas Dr. Olson served with distinction as a board director for 6 years and as a board chairperson for the past 2 years. And the college and its students appreciably benefited from her dedication and commitment to the district. And whereas the college's accomplishments during her service included the expansion of the MATC Promise Program, the launch of the Ellen and Joe Shakota MATC Scholarship Program, implementing the nationally recognized Guided Pathways Model, and joining the Moonshot for Equity. And whereas Dr. Olson, as a longtime educator, worked tirelessly to ensure the college provided high-quality programs taught by excellent instructors. And whereas Dr. Olson enthusiastically supported and aided the college to expand and enhance its high school initiatives, such as Youth Options and Dual Enrollment Academy. And whereas Dr. Olson provided diligent financial oversight of the college by balancing the budget and maintaining an outstanding bond rating. And whereas Dr. Olson has been an exemplary representative of the district board in numerous MATC student, employee, and community events, including winter and spring commencement, therefore, be it resolved that the MATC District Board, on its own behalf and that of the students and employees of MATC, gratefully acknowledges, thanks, and honors Lisa Olson for her dedicated service and contributions to MATC. It is my privilege to now share this plaque with you.
Or hairstyles later too. So thank you very much. As mentioned, I've been a career and technical educator my entire life and still consider myself an educator, even though I've moved into more of a leadership role and always will do that. And this will always be my passion. So I've thoroughly enjoyed the work here and getting to know the understanding a little bit more and really advocating for all students through the work of MATC. And I'm not done, even though I'm not sitting at this table. I will continue to advocate for the work of MATC. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. I will continue my report. It's just really been a pleasure to work with 3 of the board members who were recognized today. And I'm really grateful for your service and made a difference, and you'll be missed. So thank you very much. The college's Community Arts Committee, if you haven't had a chance yet to see our new art piece, was really about promoting inclusion in a more welcoming environment. This year, we were especially fortunate to have a submission by our artist, David Perez III. David's sculpture of metal hands forming MATC in American Sign Language, ASL, has been installed outside the T building at the corner of 6th and Juneau, right up here. Thank you to Julie Ashlock and the Community Arts Committee for their work in securing this art, a meaningful art piece. Everyone who has seen it is just thinks it's a wonderful tribute to our students and to our mission and the vision that we have for our students and for our community. I'm also pleased to report that we were able to secure a $500,000 ESL leadership grant from the Wisconsin Technical College System. The money will allow MATC to expand its capacity to serve an additional 240 students to 320 community education students per semester. The grant funds will be used to hire 4 full-time limited term instructors to teach English as a second language courses and 1 full-time limited term student services staff position. The project will engage the support and support students throughout the year with recruitment, orientation, placement, persistence, and connections to post-secondary programs and employment. I'd like to thank Dr. Foy, the president of our system, for her support, and to thank you to Dr. Jennifer Micule and the grants team for their work on this application. I was also able to attend the M-Cubed College Connections graduation ceremony. This year we had 94 Milwaukee Public School high school seniors who participated in this program. It was a really exciting event with their families there. These students take college level courses here on our campus in English and math, and sometimes they also take some of our nursing program courses and some of our science courses. At UW Milwaukee, on their campus, they take educational psychology and ethnic studies. Our average cost of a college credit is about $300. So those 94 students saved about $500,000 in tuition, which is really great. A general counsel has been hired to replace the position vacated by Ms. Falkenberg. Attorney Sherry Terrell Webb joined the college on June 5th. Sherry recently served as general counsel for the Madison Metropolitan School District. This week, she's currently attending the National Association of College and University Attorneys Conference in Chicago. We're going to make sure that you get to meet her more formally at the board meeting in July. I'm equally pleased to add Debbie Hamlet to our team. Debbie is the new Milwaukee PBS Vice President and General Manager. She comes to the college from her role as Executive Director and General Manager at WCMU Public Media, a station similar to ours. And were located on, or are located on the campus of Central Michigan University. Debbie, would you please join us and introduce yourself to our board and tell us a little bit about yourself?
That's great to be here. Thank you. Well, you said I've been in public media for about 25 years, probably a little bit more if I were honest. And so I've worked at several state agencies, state networks, community licensees, university licensees. So I'm pleased to be here. Did you say you wanted me to go through my report?
You'll be called up later. I just wanted the board to be able to meet
Okay.
you and introduce yourself.
All right.
So she'll be coming back for her report. in a few
Yeah,
minutes.
I'll come back, but it's very nice to be here. Everybody's given me such a warm welcome and it's great to be here. Lots of great things going on. I'm really proud to be part of it.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And that concludes my report.
Okay. Next under reports is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Report by Dr. Eva Martinez Palos.
Thank you so much. Good evening. I have a couple of reports for you, including an update on the HSI initiative and committee for the college. Last week on Wednesday, I'm sorry, we hosted the Undocu Ally training through the Career Hub and DEI office at MATC. We had around 90 faculty and staff and employees of MATC attend the training. And the reason why I'm highlighting this training is because it's really important that as we continue with our inclusion and equity efforts at MATC, that we continue to learn more about the different communities that we serve at MATC. We know that our undocumented students at MATC face additional challenges, not only as a first generation student, as an immigrant student, perhaps learning another language, but also financially challenges. So we had a wonderful training, and I would like to thank the Career Hub for taking the initiative to continue to educate our college community on topics that really matter. In terms of the HSI committee at MATC, we are shifting our focus on different subcommittees for the college. So you can expect more visibility for the HSI initiative at MATC, and you can also expect a lot more engagement throughout the college as we are developing subcommittees to really focus on the president's goals, but then also really emphasizing the importance of a diverse community, an inclusive community, and inclusive community. So for example, we would be developing a subcommittee that is focusing on Hispanic faculty and staff, not only in working with HR on the hiring, but also on the retention piece and the engagement piece. We know that that's one of the goals, and we want to continue to support the president's goals, but then also expanding and innovating and creating more opportunities to really reach our potential. We do feel that at MATC, when it comes to the Hispanic serving institution, we have a lot more to give as a community in engaging this community, and we are ready to take this to the next step. As such, I will be working directly with Dr. Patricia Torres Najera in championing this initiative and continuing to support our efforts at the college. The second update that I have is that also last week on June 21st, we took about 19 faculty and staff members to the Metropolitan Association of Commerce 2023 DEI Summit. It was a wonderful event, and we had an opportunity to bring our people or employees out into the community to really learn about a culture of belonging for employees in particular. At the DEI Summit, it was wonderful that we were able to co-sponsor the summit. So MATC's name was all over the place. We were also able to highlight our DEI plan. Everyone received a copy of the snapshot of the plan. But what we took from there is that it is so critical for our employees and for our campus and college community to continue to instill a sense of belongingness when it comes to our employees. We want our employees to continue to bring their whole selves to MATC, because we know that when our employees can bring their whole selves and be authentic in their identity and who they are, they will be happier and more satisfied. And that results in greater satisfaction for our students as well and greater student success. Also, we know and we learned in the summit that we need to continue to improve the conditions for Brown and Black talent at all levels. And we need to continue to learn about the obstacles that our communities face in order for us to continue to improve and continue to work on the DEI plan. Again, it was a wonderful event. I personally enjoyed being with our community outside of MATC and being able to engage in these topics. I think this was a great opportunity for our people to go out and learn about what others are doing, but then also be able to bring back that information to build capacity for equity and inclusion. We know that diversity, equity, and inclusion is not just my job, but it's everyone's job at MATC. And as we continue with our efforts, our intention is to build on inclusion champions and build that cultural belongingness for everyone that learns and works at MATC. The last item on my updates is that we are moving into the second year of the diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. So we will continue to work on the areas where we need to improve. And we will continue to highlight the areas where we are doing very well for both our employees and our students. Lastly, we continue to be committed to fostering a culture of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at MATC. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for supporting our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions?
Not seeing any, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next is the enrollment report, and Dr. Dakwar will be doing that on behalf of Dr. Adams tonight.
Thank you, Chair Olson. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Just waiting for the report to show up on the screen here.
Oh.
So we're looking back at last year here, and I'm going to show you how we came in. As you can see, we're showing the budgeted FTEs, the ones attained, and the percentage. And we broke down this by summer, fall, and spring. And then at the bottom, we show the year to date. You know, I'd like to focus on the year to date. We budgeted 8,300 FTEs for last year. We came in at exactly, as of May 15th, I should say, 8,159. And that would be 98.28%. As you can see, slightly behind the goal, about 141 FTEs, but these are the actual numbers from last year. Again, that's how we measure, you know, what we budget, how we come in, and how close. So we within 1.7%, so to speak. Next slide, please. Looking ahead, and this is fiscal year 2024, the same chart, so make it easy to follow. As you can see, let's start with the summer. This is the current summer. We're budgeting 766. We're at 704, which is 91.9% so far. This is actually of last week. Today, we're showing 94.6%. So we are almost 95% of goal as of today. Fall, still early, but we are 49.2% compared to budget. And then one thing that we do is we measure how we pace compared to last year this time. And if we look at the pacing compared to last year, we're at 107.6%. So we're pacing ahead. We're ahead of last year exactly at this time, even though this shows only 49.2%. Next slide, please. This chart shows you a weekly, actually, enrollment report, and then we track enrollments daily. There's a funnel that we look at, but you know, the team looks at weekly numbers and how they fluctuate, you know, increase, decline, you know, adjustments, stuff like that. As you can see, we started off back in May, 103.7%, and today we're almost tied, even within 3 FTEs or 0.4%. So that's basically where we are. Next slide, please. This is a breakdown of the number of students that we have, male, female, and then the ethnicity. You're gonna notice right away that we have almost 2/3 females, 1/3 male, and then the ethnicity breakdown, roughly 1/3 is white, Caucasian, and then slightly over 1/4 is African American, and about the same percentage is Hispanic students as well. And these are consistent numbers, by the way. We see these patterns over and over. We're hoping to see more Hispanic students, coming to the college so we can attain our Hispanic Serving Institute goal as well. Next,
Goal is
please.
20%.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
The goal is 25%.
Yeah, that's
right?
correct.
Over and over, okay,
That's correct.
consistent.
Yes, yes. So we did the same for the summer. This is exactly the same chart, except for the fall. We keep an eye on enrollment early on. As you can see, we're showing, around 11%, 11+% over last year, that's correct. So we're doing well so far, going into the fall. And our goal is to maintain this high number so we can attain our goals and stay above the goal as well. Okay, same breakdown here. You can see almost the same numbers, 2/3 female, 1/3 male, and the breakdown of the ethnicity is about the same. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Not seeing any, so I think you're good. I was waiting to see if there were hands or people were processing.
Thank you.
And now it's time for the Milwaukee PBS General Manager's Report, and Debbie Hamlet will come back up again.
I was so anxious before.
I know, it's okay. We're anxious to hear.
I'm ready. Good afternoon, Chair Olson and MATC board members, Dr. Martin. I'm excited to be joining the college Milwaukee PBS team. I look forward to working with creative, innovative staff. And they've been producing wonderful content, strong legacy for 65 years, which we're celebrating this year. And in my short 2 weeks here, this is only my 3rd week, although it feels a little bit longer maybe, but in a good way, I'm meeting with station staff, my colleagues, my college colleagues and community folks, and everybody is, as I said, offered a really warm welcome. I'm really happy to be here, and now on to my report. May was a fantastic month for our development department. The month of May ended with just over $602,548, which is $200,000 higher than last May. I'm happy to report that we've exceeded our fiscal year targeted amount of $6.3 million. That's a good way to join an organization, isn't it? The month of June is still to be reported, so we're likely to be about $300,000 even more over our target. The Free Will campaign was launched as part of our 65th anniversary year this past October. During the last month, an additional $75,000 have been pledged by individuals who are using the Free Will software. This brings future pledged bequests over the last 8 months that will eventually benefit Milwaukee PBS to total more than $6 million. So that's something to really look forward to. The June 2nd opening of the Milwaukee PBS 65th anniversary exhibit has been well received. More than 100 people have toured the exhibit at MATC Create Gallery in room M175 of the main building. The exhibit highlights historic memorabilia as well as clips from past programs shown on 6 interactive screens, and the exhibit will be open 10 to 4 weekdays through September 1st. I watched our local program production crew of Black Nouveau cover the 52nd annual Juneteenth Day celebration on Monday, June 19th. We presented a special edition of Black Nouveau that evening at 10. So that was a really quick turnaround. If you've never seen how TV's done, we'd be happy to show you anytime. But there's a crew out with a truck, gathered everything, come back, edit it all together, quickly put it on there. So it's quite a good thing for the team to do. And we presented that program at 10, highlighting the day's coverage of the events, remembrance, reflection, and celebration. In addition, we had a booth providing some promotional giveaways to the children and adults who stopped by. Milwaukee PBS programs have far-reaching appeal and interest. We were recently notified that the John Gerda production of People of the Port, the story of Jones Island, was shown to a group of high school students at a high school in Gdansk, Poland. A portion of the documentary shows how Jones Island was once home to a Polish fishing village, mostly inhabited by the Kashubs, who were immigrants from north central Poland who came to Milwaukee. So, wow, around the world, they're seeing the programs. That's really cool. The semester may be over, but the summer television and video production students are beginning their planning for the production of the 14th season of Live at the Lakefront. This 8-part live streaming music series from Discover World Amphitheater and Grounds begins July 12th. This student-produced and Rotary Club-sponsored production has been very well received in the past, and this year the station and the TVP instructional team are collaboratively investigating the possibility of bringing this student production web series as a future broadcast on Milwaukee PBS. So we're looking forward to that, and thank you for your time. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Yes, Director Marvel Connect.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Live at the Lakefront?
What would you like to know? I don't know the lineup of bands.
You said it's student produced,
Student produced. Yes.
and these are, people are doing this for credit towards their degrees or
It's part of their,
part of
for
their,
their learning. Mhm.
okay. And it's just about bands and music and things. like that.
Music, yeah, all original music. And they'll be doing all of this, all the recording, editing, all of
Okay, cool, sounds
Yeah.
good.
very cool.
Any
more
other
questions?
questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And last report, the legislative matters report with Ramey Zelenkova, who's here live today.
Thank you. Good evening. Lots of activity the last few weeks. You have my report in front of you. I want to highlight 3 areas. Some of this is repetitive. It was included in a report last month, kind of live, because the Joint Finance Committee was actually taking action on the technical college system budget, which was referenced just a little while ago in terms of general aid. So the Finance Committee approved just under $10 million in state general aid, an increase for the entire system, which was substantially lower than what the governor recommended. And so, as we heard earlier, there will be an impact there. The process is continuing. The legislature will vote on the budget starting tomorrow. The Senate will take up the bill first, and then the Assembly is scheduled to take up the bill on Thursday. And then we'll see what the governor will do once it reaches his desk. One item that came very fast and furious, and so I just want to thank all of those who supported our efforts in the Capitol, Dr. Martin, members of the board, Director Baker, Representative, you're always in the thick of it in the state capitol, of course. And I think we had a number of individuals in the business community as well support the technical college system here, but there was a very last minute amendment to a bill that had been sitting idle for several months, unrelated to technical college operations. There was an amendment that was moved out of the Assembly Committee. And then the Assembly had planned to act on that bill as amended several days later. What that amendment would have done is eliminated the ability for technical colleges to have an operating levy. The amendment would have supplanted that operating levy, those dollars for each college, with state general aid. This is concerning for a number of reasons. I think all of you received those updates, so I won't go over the details. Happy to, have a conversation, after. We've seen these types of proposals, in the past. There's always been some discussion about the levies in general, right, as it relates to property tax levies. So we were successful in ultimately defeating that amendment. It had already been scheduled for the floor and it ended up coming off. And then we pivoted to the Joint Finance Committee to ensure that it wasn't added in a Finance Committee budget motion. So fast and furious, I think that all occurred over 4 days and a weekend, but it had a lot of people very concerned, just given the importance of that local dynamic and, a nice blend of funds, both student tuition, what we receive in state aid and then our operating levy as well. So thank you again for all of that. It was a good partnership. I think we need to be diligent moving forward. We've all been seeing the headlines as it relates to education in particular. And so we'll just want to maintain those relationships. Go ahead, Dr. Martin.
I wanted to let you just finish your last sentence, but I really think that you need to be singled out for all of your efforts into the wee hours of the morning even. You were just excellent. In fact, I think you did such a great job that from our Boards Association, Layla Merrifield sent out to all the presidents, just lauding your work. So I just really think you're to be congratulated and all your support. Of course, we had a lot of our folks in the community and across the state who have helped us with, along with Morna Foy, but you in particular really did a great job for MATC on our behalf. And so thank you so much for all your efforts.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was Thursday was a long day when it happened. I was in the finance committee until 3 a.m. and then had this amendment to work on right away. So we all really banded together, but I appreciate that. You know, advocacy is you can always plan for the best, right? It's more of an art than a science, and things can derail you pretty quickly. And so in these situations, it's always tough when you have a very limited amount of time to try to kill something in particular, especially when it's being led by legislative leadership. So we worked hard on that and appreciate the effort there. So good news on that. Another little bit of a silver lining I will add in the budget wrap up motion, even though it was disappointing with general aid. There was a one-time funding, $20 million that will be later defined, probably through some separate legislation if it makes it through the budget process to support oral health workforce initiatives so that colleges can expand upon existing programs. So again, it needs to make it through the final phase, and we'll see what the governor does with the budget and then any follow-up trailer legislation to further define that program. So again, not ongoing, not general aid, but it was a nice silver lining at the very end there. And then the third thing I wanted to highlight, we've talked about broadband and equity in the space of broadband and what we can do there for our students and for our community. And actually just yesterday, I believe it was made more official as it relates to what the state's going to receive from the federal government for broadband for access. So we are going to be getting $1 billion at the state level. The Public Service Commission will route those dollars. So there's still a process yet that will need to be worked through. But I think we have some opportunities there if we want to have conversations on that front as well. So I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and I sit on the legislative task force and, I just want to echo what Dr. Martin said, you responded quickly. We were all in communication there and I heard from legislators about your work and it was really great. And I also want us all to see this good news for the technical colleges soberly, because there's a lot of bad news to go around for our K-12 partners and other higher eds. It has not been a great session for K-16 public education, period. But we did dodge a pretty nasty attack that would have come, directly at our colleges, and that is a good thing. So,
yeah, I think some people have questions specific to, some UW system provisions, local government provisions, and technical colleges. None of that will impact technical colleges. So to your point, lots of stuff out there, but unrelated to technical colleges, at least as of right now. Thank you.
Thank you. We're moving on to the board monitoring section of the agenda. Dr. Dakwar, we have advisory committees.
Hello again. I'd like to invite Dr. Mike City to join me here. Also, we have an instructional chair with us today, and both will share their experiences with the advisory committee, working with advisory committees. Just quickly, we shared with you the slide deck along with the narration. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to address any questions at the end as well. With that said, hopefully we can keep it brief. So we'll turn it over to Dr. City.
Thank you, Doctor. And I'll keep it brief since we're last on the agenda. So thank you all for your time.
So basically, just to share some best practices from what I've learned this year. This is the first year that I started as Dean of the Creative Arts Design and Media Pathway. So I oversee 12 academic programs and have made every effort to be an active participant in the advisory boards for all of the programs. So my need for doing that really is, to just to learn about the needs of our industry partners, to evaluate how well the programs have been meeting those needs, and then to provide some direction when needed. So what I've done to help facilitate that, to be an active participant, is to create an enrollment and retention dashboard that really focuses on key performance indicators and primarily focusing on historical trend data in those programs, and have utilized that as a purpose for discussion in the advisory board meetings. So we look at enrollment trends, whether things are going up or down, and overall head counts, application data, again, kind of just looking at some of those trends over the years on conversion percentages. Retention data, also focusing on equity gap data, and then as requested by the advisory boards, looking at course completion data, and then the economic and market data, which we utilize a third-party software called Lightcast for that data. So the sources of the data that I provided came from primarily from institutional research. A lot of the data are just publicly available on our internal internet website. That's the MATC. For application data, enrollments, our program performance matrices. And then that Lightcast data, which is again that third-party software solution that we use, which has the ability to look back. I believe it's like 10 years and then look forward 10 years in terms of trends and then forecasts. And it looks at job posting analytics, so we can evaluate skills and competencies that are out there and jobs that are being posted, looking at job titles, those kind of things, job market overview, local industry snapshots. And then we can also evaluate our competition in terms of other educational programming in the area. So we can see graduation trends for what other schools are trending in terms of if their graduations are going up or down or otherwise. So some of the results of some of the discussions that I had just this last year, which will probably result in some changes. Some of these have been submitted, I believe, already, but some will be probably changes for next year. Will be a change to the e-production program, the associate's degree, which is theoretically a very in-demand program. We're just not seeing a lot of external demand coming in for that program in terms of the application data. So it may change its name to something more reflective of what it is, because nobody knows what e-production is. So we'll probably call it something like digital video production or digital media production or something like that to bring in more students in that program. The photography program is another example where they ended up changing the order of some courses to improve the overall program retention, as they found that there were some courses that were early semesters that had low course completion rates, and then they'll put those more towards the end of the program to get students successful earlier in the program. And then the graphic design program had a revelation that it's losing a lot of market share to MyEd. So MyEd's graduations have been increasing, where ours have been going down, and so we're looking to kind of change that trend. And we'll be focusing on creating some better marketing materials, and possibly in the future reconstructing our labs to be more collaborative, to kind of model what the student experience is like over at MyEd. Also looking at review of attendance and behavior expectations in culinary and baking programs to address some of the equity gap shortfalls that we've seen within those data. And then, holistically, I'm also connecting the educational assistants from our various programs to review the retention data. We had a lot of very thoughtful discussions in that area too, to see, so they can learn from best practices with each other. So that's been part of the discussion. Has also been, what's working well in certain programs that they can then share with other programs where at least the data are demonstrating that there may be some struggles in certain areas. So that's just what I learned this year as the new dean for the Creative Arts Design Media Pathway, and we'll continue to move forward with that enrollment retention dashboard, and hopefully continue some very critical dialogues with our programs going forward.
Thank you, Dr. City. And we have the instruction chair of the funeral services program, Gabe Schauf.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks very much for having me. Dr. Dockwart just asked me very similarly to Mike to just share some best practices and some of my experiences with our advisory board. I have been a part of the funeral service program. This will be my 10th year with MATC, and my 4th year, I believe, as the program coordinator. So I work a lot with the advisory board as we try to communicate throughout the year. Couple of things I just wanted to point out to be brief here. First of all, we do have a very strong relationship with our advisory board members. We currently have 13 members. I saw on the slide share that there's some stats as far as membership goes. For us being the only program in the state of Wisconsin, we want to make sure that our membership covers the entire state. So we have 2 members that represent each of our funeral associations in the state, the WFDA and the FSCA. We also have 5 representatives or 5 members that represent the different shared program schools that we have across the state. We have shared programs with CBTC, Northwood, Fox Valley, Gateway, and Blackhawk currently. So we have advisory board members from those areas that also serve as liaisons and points of contact for those schools as well, should they have any questions or issues. We do have 1 member that represents the state examination or examining board for funeral service. And then we have 5 from the Milwaukee area currently as well. As far as curriculum development goes, to be honest, our modifications to our curriculum are primarily driven by our accrediting body, the American Board of Funeral Service Education. They do curriculum modifications on a 5 to 7 year rotation. However, we do review our curriculum on a 2-year cycle. We have a schedule where all of our classes are laid out ahead of time. We have this planned out to spring of 2028 right now in terms of 2-year cycles for all of our courses being reviewed. And we stress the importance of input from our representatives across the state, as it's important to meet the curriculum standards of our accrediting body, but we also want to make sure that we are including state trends, state concerns, and anything that might pertain to us locally. So we do pass our COSs out to our board members well ahead of the meeting. We give them a time to review it and come up with any suggestions. And then when we meet during the meeting, we'll discuss and revise and edit accordingly and seek their approval as we move on. As far as best practices go, I can keep that really simple. For me, really, I found that the best practices for our advisory board is transparency and communication. For me, I have a very open door policy with our state funeral professionals. As many times as I present or meet with people, I'm there to give my phone number, my email, and invite folks to check us out or learn more about us online or stop in for a tour anytime. We want to make sure that we have constant communication with our professionals across the state should there be any questions or needs that come up over the course of the school year. We do have regular communication with our advisory board members, as well as both board associations, again, the FSCA and the WFDA. This includes me presenting at regional meetings across the state throughout the year. We also present and on a regular basis have a booth at our state conventions. So the WFDA has a convention in June, and the FSCA has a state convention in October, and we are regular presenters there in terms of program updates and any other goings on that we want to share. Really, I think it's important for us that we have a presence. Public relations is huge, and we want to make sure that there's a face to the program and somebody to reach out and relay information and stay communicating with them. 2 other things that I'll touch on that we work on, we do meet or we work really hard to meet the professional needs across the state. The 2 big ones right now are jobs, trying to find people to fill the job market in terms of apprentices and students. So we run active job posts. We share job postings online. We share job postings with our apprentices that come through for our apprentice courses and for our students that are coming in. We also help provide resources and material for recruitment in terms of career fairs, any information that a funeral home might want to have on hand should they want to connect with anybody in their community regarding the profession and the job market there as well. Finally, we do take advantage of the fact that the National Funeral Directors Association is actually located in Brookfield. So we play an active role with them where we can in terms of student involvement, faculty involvement, and we try to have a presence there, which again, just again, increases our visibility and our PR and keeps people in the loop with what we're doing as a program. So that's kind of the long and short of where we're at. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Yeah, thanks so much. And this gives you just an idea. This is only a sample. We have 94 committees serving almost 900 members also on any given year. So highly engaged, highly engaging as well. So any questions?
The statute says, and some things you
1971,
quoted, talks about the need to have employers and employees. And I'm just wondering how that's administered. I mean, it is a manager non-owner of an entity, an employee or an employer? How do we recruit? How do we apply that standard?
So actually our curriculum management track that, and we want to make sure that we maintain this exact number as mandated by the state or by the statute as well. So if the question is manager, we do have practitioners as well as managers. So we need to kind of keep track of that, maintain the percentages that are mandated by the state.
Yeah, I just don't understand what the categories mean. When you say, I understand what an employee means.
Correct.
I don't understand what employer means in terms of a human being who's going to be on the advisory committee. Who does that have to be? Does it have to be an owner of the company? Does it have to be an officer of the company? Does it have to be somebody who manages a certain number of people? I maybe you don't know the answer to this question,
That's
but
all right, and
I
I'll give you
wondered
an
what
answer.
it meant.
And I do have the expert here. I don't know if you can, we can give it a shot, otherwise we can get back to you.
Employers basically are managers.
Okay.
If they are any kind of a manager, or if they're the owner of the business, then they're put in the employer category. The worker bees, if you will, are put into the employee category.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. The membership standards. Why can't there be students, faculty, or staff faculty a part of this?
Students can be alums, actually.
Alums, yeah, I seen that below, but I just figured I would ask that question since it's a part of the standard. And was there?
Well, usually if in my, because I was part of the culinary before joining the board, the point is for us to review what they're currently doing and give feedback of what is actually needed in the workforce. So a student wouldn't necessarily know what's needed as much as an employer would know. So I mean, well, no, I mean, if, so I'll give you an example, speaking from my own experience. So in the restaurant industry, I have 3 employees that are currently students at MATC. They don't necessarily know what are the needs for the restaurant are. They're employees, they're working, they're starting employees. They don't necessarily know, they don't have the vision or of what it's needed yet. So the committees kind of like take a look at what they're doing, and then we will say like, oh, you know what, you should add this to the curriculum. Or for example, like that's no longer needed. We no longer do that at caterings or at the restaurant. Perhaps you should consider something else. Am I right?
Yes, you are. And in fact, in addition to this, we do connect with our students in different ways, so to speak. So if alums can serve, but students cannot, well, we connect with them in different ways, surveys, focus groups, other ways of really kind of listening to them and understanding how their experience is being impacted by our programs.
Dr. Baker?
This is like one thing that I've always been incredibly interested. I know
Sure.
Dr.
And
Dockler
you
knows
served,
this about
yeah.
me, Dr. Martin knows this about me. Because I really feel advisory committees are one of the things that actually sets an institution like MATC apart. Even from a lot of traditional community colleges, as well as universities and whatever. And it is meant to be eyes into an industry. Which isn't to say that we don't have students who may be working in those industries who then are attending while they're working. But the purpose of an advisory committee is meant to give us who are in this building or who are, working in our classrooms, eyes into what's actually happening. And that's part of the reason for their wanting to be both employees, people who are, you call worker bees, I might say frontline operational people, as well as people who may be managerial, because they'll all have a different sort of vantage point on what's in that workplace. and our students may. And there's, the whole requirement to have graduates on, so we have a fresh student voice also as a part of that. But that is like the main purpose of advisory committees. And back in the day, I promised I'm gonna stop saying that like one of these days, guys. I absolutely promise. But we used to, and when we had an education committee, we actually used to look at advisory committees at least 4 times a year. And we would like nitpick into like every committee to make sure that we had good representation and to make sure that our programs did not get divorced from the real world. That is the heart and soul of what advisory committees are about.
Okay. I'm just gonna say, I think there's one more aspect to that. I think from past conversations we've had, you would probably say, and the student who's just graduated has a lot to say about whether what they're walking into, whether they've been well prepared for what they're walking into. And that's certainly a valid viewpoint that needs to be captured. But the other thing that the advisory committees need to be is looking over the horizon. My example was always in IT, where it's really easy to teach the skills that everybody used to do. And we saw an example of this when Northwestern Mutual outsourced their entire IT function one day. We were still training people to do those jobs, and we needed our advisory committees, and I think they did, to be telling us before that happened, hey, those jobs are going away. You need to be looking on this next thing that you can't even see yet because you don't know what we're thinking. That's something really nobody other than probably management, frankly, in these bigger companies have enough of a look over the horizon in terms of what they're going to invest in. Maybe the I don't like the phrase worker bees, but frontline workers know as well. But there is a difference between what do I need right now and what's coming 5 years from now. And I think one of the most important functions of these advisory committees is to make sure that we are not just training people for what, there's a spot now, but we're already working on the program, which is why I'm going to introduce the subject today of maybe we ought to start looking at hydrogen internal combustion engines in our automotive program.
Yeah.
That was
Nice little
quick.
segue there.
I was gonna say, that was
great.
Can you get closer to it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Director Burr.
thank you guys for your input, but nobody still answered my question as to why we do it. Like, is it something that is just like we voted on?
I think it's a state statute.
Okay.
It's required by state
Yeah, I
statute,
want to
right?
know if it was like our decision
No,
to make the
no.
decision.
38.14 for
Yeah, no, it's in, even high schools, it used to be when you do Carl Perkins grant, even high school career technical education programs must have employer advisory committees. It's been federal law for a really long time.
Right, so I'm saying the specific reason why students and like faculty and staff is just
Not a local decision.
yeah,
right?
okay.
Yeah.
I did want to add, if I could, we, though we don't have students on the advisory board, our program, and I'm sure many other programs across the institution, certainly invite the students to participate and be present. So in our case, we have officers that are part of our funeral service fraternal organization, and they'll come to the meetings that are held over the course of the school year, and they'll put in a report, provide updates, talk about the student experience, and so the advisory board committee members are able to hear some of their experiences and get some of their input as well.
Was there somebody from staff, always faculty, part of those committees? I remember.
They're always
Yeah,
invited.
they're always
Yep,
involved, like
definitely.
Chip Reese was always in the,
Big
yeah,
presence
in the
too. Yep.
hospitality one. I'm just reading what's here.
This is
Well,
what's
maybe
re-
next time we'll
this-
get better.
this is what's required, not necessarily who's actually engaged in the process or
Right.
attending these meetings.
Yeah, there's an entire state statute about district board powers, and it falls under one of those sections.
Curious.
And we could change it. Takes a while. I had a question about is there a list of all of these members, like we're breaking them down, these demographics, is there a list of all of them? I'm really curious about the relationship between management, labor, and consultants. And what makes someone a consultant? Is there a qualification that they have? And also, I'm curious about how we are identifying someone as a minority. There are different things that make someone a minority. Are we talking about Black and brown folks? Are we talking about LGBTQ plus folks? Are we talking about people who are poor demographics, et cetera? So I'm curious, like, what institutes someone as a minority, and I'm just wondering if there is a list of these members that we can just go to.
So the list, yeah, we do have the list, and then we can get you the breakdown as well and definitions as well.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
I throw one in on these.
Okay.
The other is something usually in that category? And just not now, or what list is other?
I think that's how they identify or did not identify themselves. I think that's how we work
Okay.
it, so,
So if somebody says
Yeah.
that they don't want to,
correct.
okay.
Any other questions related to advisory committee? Okay, thank you.
I know.
What don't you do though?
All right.
Our next item is new business. Is there anybody that would like to? Director Burke.
Open comments. I'm not very clear, what was being asked. But it seems that they had a concern, I think, about having time or the availability to have time to do work over the summer. And I don't know if we need it like in new business, but maybe the college can kind of bring some clarity to that for myself at least. Because I wasn't really sure.
Could I suggest this, what I think would be a simple answer to that? Can you define what Zancel means?
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
we
what
can
I was
do
gonna
that.
ask. I asked that question. I was.
Was that
like,
the training?
Professional assignment.
What is that?
It's a professional assignment on top of their.
Non-teaching.
So paid, so more time though,
It's
right?
additional paid time.
Okay, but we're not actually
Yeah.
noticed to have a conversation.
no,
on that.
we
They don't want to have
So-
a conversation, but we can get.
Right.
Clarity on it is time, have like paid time to do additional work.
Can
To
we
meet
add
their
this to
goal.
the next month's agenda?
So
for
what,
the-
or the request could be, as the administration often does, is to follow up with a report to clarify that. And then the new board chair can decide if that wasn't enough, that wants to put it on new, an item for discussion for next month. So I think that's how we've been doing it, is that getting some clarity on what the discussion item was in a follow-up report. And if there's still confusion or more questions, then decide if it needs to be brought to a board agenda, because sometimes the clarity through a report provides enough and sometimes not. So it did seem like there was a consensus. I know. It seems like there is a consensus. There were enough, and that happens in the past where sometimes something's brought up and we can't discuss it, but it seems like providing background terms that are used within the college sometimes are unclear to that. So just maybe some clarity around that.
A quick question. Would you like us to put it in writing what the question is? Because I think my main question is, if we push it out, will they actually get an answer on getting the time that they're requesting in a reasonable enough time to do their work?
Yeah, so I think what right now we're trying to, I don't think the issue on the table is solving a problem until we even know if there is a
Yeah,
problem,
right,
right?
yeah.
And so I think part of that is starting with, I'm gonna assume that administration, HR is sort of aware of whatever that was, but we have to get that first to decide if it even is something to be solved, right? So I think it's gotta start with just clarifying what it was. So I would just start with there and then.
I agree, but I'm gonna send an email.
Sure.
Just because
Okay. Yep.
I'm like waiting for solutions.
Okay, I already announced future events in my chairperson's report, but July 10th is the organizational meeting. So that's for those of you continuing sooner than normal in July. And then we talked about the District Boards Association in Appleton. If you're interested in that, Lauren gave us some further clarification of the important time to be there in that time stretch. So at this time, I believe Director Case has a motion for us to move into closed session.
Yes.
I do. I move that the district,
Yeah, we will. Go ahead.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yep.
I move that the district board convene into closed session pursuant to sections 19.851C and E of the Wisconsin statutes to discuss item 11A, considerations of collective bargaining matters, and 11B, president's annual evaluation, contract, and compensation. The board may reconvene into open session to take action on matters discussed in closed session under item 11A and B.
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion and second. We do need a roll call vote, and then we will take a break after that.
Director Baker,
Yes.
Director Burris,
Yes.
Director Case,
Aye.
Director Diaz,
Aye.
Director Foley,
Aye.
Director Mendieta Raymond,
Aye.
Director Mays,
Aye.
Director Morton.
Aye.
Director Lewis.
Hi. Okay.
Good.
Food, bathroom, water, whatever you need, we're gonna. Moving
Yeah.
cars, there you go. No, we did, so.
Self-driving test.
Yeah.
Oh,